Hi, so today's video, what I want to talk about is what you can actually find out about a business online at Companies House. And I want to do this video now because businesses are becoming less and less stable at the moment. There's a lot of economic challenges affecting small businesses right now. And being able to do a little bit of research about who you're working with in terms of customers and also suppliers is actually a really useful thing, because it means then at least if you're giving people payment terms, or if you're bringing someone into your supply chain that you're actually quite reliant on to deliver a good quality service, you're not going to be let down, or you're less likely to be let down. This video, we're talking about Companies House. I could do a screen share, but then I'd have to look at a specific company. So I'm just going to keep it simple with a few points that you can look out for. The accounts that are filed for a company at Companies House are different to the accounts that go to HMRC. Typically, the accounts that go to HMRC have a lot more detail in. You can tell things like turnover, profit, tax bills, all that kind of stuff from the accounts that go to HMRC. But you can't necessarily do that with the accounts that go to Companies House. Usually the accounts that go to Companies House are called abridged accounts, or there might be micro-entity accounts. They've got a very limited amount of information in. But there are a few things you can tell about a business when you're checking them out at Companies House. And these things will give you an idea of whether or not they're a healthy business and a responsibly run business. And then you can make a decision about whether to do business with them. So first things, just look at the directors and the people of significant control are. And also, you can also, if you look at the confirmation statements or annual returns going far back enough, you can also figure out who the shareholders are. That's quite important as a starting point, because sometimes the person you're dealing with might not have the authority to make the commitments that you think they do. And by actually doing a little bit of digging in terms of the ownership structure and who's the directors are, and you can understand who the main points of contact are in terms of making agreements. And another thing to have a look at is just have a look at how long that business has been there. The longer it's been there, that can be a really good sign of stability. Have a look at when they're filing the accounts. If they're getting their accounts in late after the deadline, then that might be an indicator of them as a business not being particularly responsible. And that should also impact your decision to do business with them. You can also actually have a look at charges. So if they've got quite a lot of debt and there's certain like banks or lenders, for example, they've attached preferential creditor rights to these businesses, that's also visible there. That could give you an idea of how leveraged they are and the amount of debt they've got. So then when you actually do go into the accounts, whilst you can't see everything, what you can see in these abridged accounts is if their business is cumulatively profitable. If you look at their net assets, ideally you want their net assets to be positive. That's an indicator that the business has been cumulatively profitable. You also really want to see a positive movement in their net assets, because that's an indicator that the last year the business was profitable. For example, if the business had like net assets of 10,000 last year, but then the most recent set of account, it had minus 50,000. That's a very good indicator that the business made quite a large loss. If you're thinking about giving some payment terms, that's actually quite relevant. Yeah, being able to see how much they owe people in general, how much they're owed by people, essentially a rough idea of how if they're profitable or not necessarily how much profit they. These are all valuable things you can actually get from looking at a business's accounts. You can also get an idea of what kind of assets they had, also how much cash they had in their bank at that last year end. One caveat's always been a set of accounts can be a year old. Like you've got 9 months after the accounting year end to file those accounts at Companies House. So you're not always looking at most recent information. You do have to bear that in mind, but it is still useful. And this is all stuff you should look into when you're doing business with someone. But if you want to make sure that the chaos that is going on in the economy doesn't impact your business and your ability to deliver for your customers, then this is all stuff you should factor in.